it is notable because Cornyn is losing in 13 straight polls. That's why this is notable. In case anyone was wondering, that's why this is news. Cornyn is the incumbent, and he has been down by double digits.
And the party apparatus needs to spend tens of millions of dollars to rescue him in the primary, which they've admitted to.
Good morning, I'm Jake Sherman.
And I'm Andrew Desiderio.
And welcome to the Daily Punch, brought to you by Punchbowl News. It is Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. Let's get into the mix. Here are your Washington headlines of the day. Number one, the Democrats' Israel split is defining the Michigan Senate primary. Number two, California Dems redistricting gamble. And number three, John Cornyn is showing signs of closing a big polling gap. Let's get into it, Andrew. We could unveil now that you are in Michigan, a state that is critical in every election, to be honest with you. And there's a bunch of competitive House races, not a bunch, but a few. There's a competitive Senate race, always competitive in presidential races. And this morning's top is looking at the Michigan Senate Democratic primary. And the dynamics that are, it's a very good top, but the dynamics that are, I wouldn't say plaguing, but probably roiling is a good word. The Democratic Party writ large is roiling or helping define at least, Andrew, the Michigan Senate Democratic primary when it comes to Israel and Gaza. What have you learned in the Wolverine state, I guess it would be?
Well, what's fascinating is that this primary is going to last a year. I mean, literally, the primary in Michigan is not until August. Republicans have their candidate in Mike Rogers, former congressman. He was the candidate last time, lost narrowly to now Senator Alyssa Slotkin here, even though Donald Trump won the state. But now you've got this dynamic where Democrats have to go through a year-long primary. There's three prominent candidates in the race. I interviewed all three of them here in Michigan. And what we're seeing play out is really a microcosm of the broader struggle within the Democratic Party right now, in terms of not only just in general the future of the party, but also the struggle over how to define the party going forward on this Israel-Gaza issue, right? You've got Congresswoman Haley Stevens in the race right now. She's seen by some as the front runner and maybe the favorite of Senate Democratic leaders back in Washington. She's running a more traditional Democratic campaign.
I'm not sure if that's good or bad, Andrew, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's sort of one of the dynamics here is that you have Mallory McMorrow, the state senator, who is in this race, and Abdul El-Sayed, who's a longtime civil servant and physician in the state. He has the backing of Bernie Sanders. Both of them, to varying degrees, are running against the traditional Senate Democratic leadership in Washington and saying, we need to shake things up. Abdul El-Sayed has been a very prominent backer of the so-called uncommitted movement, which during the primary last year, at least in Michigan, was intended to send a message to then President Joe Biden over his and his administration's support for Israel and urging them to sort of change course. And so you have this dynamic right now where you've got Haley Stevens, Mallory McMorrow, and Abdul El-Sayed all vying for the Democratic nomination. And the sort of fear among Democrats back in Washington is that they're basically going to just tear themselves apart over the next year, not only on Israel-Gaza, but on a bunch of different issues. I mean, who knows what we could be talking about in even 2 or 3 months from now.
But there's one certainty, right? That the situation in Israel and in Gaza is not, I mean, listen, could always be an agreement to stop hostilities between the two. And we've seen flashes of that. We've even seen some of those hostilities paused at certain periods of time over the last couple years, but it is a big issue. And U.S. involvement and Donald Trump's support of the Israeli government is still going to be a salient issue. And here you have some news here, Andrew, which is Mallory McMorrow, who is obviously one of the candidates, has publicly urged AIPAC to stay out of the Michigan primary. She's been in touch with the organization directly, as well as other pro-Israel groups. This is shot across the bow, in my view, at Haley Stevens, who was in a member-on-member primary against Andy Levin back in a couple years ago and got huge support from AIPAC and the Jewish community. And that was something that rankled Levin and that rankled a lot of his supporters. I don't know, to be honest with you, I don't know that McMorrow's suggestion to AIPAC is going to carry a lot of weight one way or another. I think AIPAC will probably make a decision based on, its own political calculuses, but I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, if AIPAC does endorse, they would obviously endorse Haley Stevens, right? She is doubling down on her pro-Israel stance. She's saying she would have voted against those Bernie Sanders resolutions in the Senate from a few weeks ago that would have blocked new offensive weapons sales to Israel. You've got Abdul El-Sayed and you've got Mallory McMorrow, on the other hand, both saying that they would have voted in favor of those, right? That was an issue that pretty much evenly split the Senate Democratic caucus. And so this is an issue that Democratic leadership, at least back in Washington, really doesn't want to see sort of continue to play out. And I would expect Bernie Sanders, for one, to continue to force these votes on these resolutions. And I will note that Senator Sanders has endorsed Abdul El-Sayed.
All right, Andrew, the number 2 story of the morning from Ali Mutnick, who has been a machine on redistricting with a very interesting piece that is a kind of one of the hidden issues with the California Democrats' redistricting ploy, which is they have created 7 districts that Vice President Kamala Harris carried by single digits in 2024. Darrell Issa, which was a Harris +3, and Democratic Congress people. That's a lot of people. Adam Gray, Derek Tran, Raul Ruiz, Jim Costa, Norma Torres, and Ami Bera. David Valadao is in a district that Trump won by single digits, in this case just by 2 points. The point that Ali is making here is that they have created, in their quest to gain seats and offset Texas, they have created a ton of swing seats. And part of the issue here, Andrew, is that they are going off of 2024 numbers, off of presidential level numbers in California, and that is somewhat risky. And I think the larger point is that there are now 9 seats. And I would even put Bera on the outer skirts of that because that's a Harris +9. But there are 9 seats that could be in play in any given year in California. By the way, a lot of these seats, major media markets in Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, across the state. So it's an expensive state to run campaigns in. And I think it's just, I just think in the rush to do this redistricting, both in Texas and in California, leaders in those states have made just a bunch of really difficult calculuses.
Yeah, and one of the interesting points that Ali makes in this really good item is that many of those members represent districts with a high concentration of Latino voters as well,
right.
Who, of course, shifted to the right in the 2024 presidential election.
But who knows? I just think that, and this is the point I think you're about to make, and I'll preempt you, who knows where not only Latino voters, but where any voter that voted one way or another or turned out one way or another in 2024, where they're going in 2026 or any other non-presidential year. I mean, I know there's a lot of people in town who say that they're going to try to make 2026 like 2024, try to make off-year elections like on-year elections, Andrew. I just think it ain't, that dog don't hunt, as they say.
Yeah, and it's kind of what we were talking about with Michigan too, right? Like, this is a year-long primary, right, but we don't know what the heck the main issue is going to be 2 months from now, hell, even 2 weeks from now.
And we don't know exactly. We don't know what the electorate's going to look like or what turnout's going to look like. All right, number 3 story of the morning, John Cornyn is showing signs of closing his gigantic polling gap with Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General. Speaking of primaries that are going to last a very long time in Texas,
not as long.
Is another one. Not as long. That is true. Paxton led Cornyn 44-39 in a survey of 1,500 likely GOP primary voters conducted August 6th through 12th. Another 17% were unsure. The poll was conducted by text message by Texas State University's Barbara Jordan Policy Research and Survey Center. And the senator led Paxton by 1.30-29 with 37% undecided. That's a big number. In a mid-August survey from Emerson College, that poll had a small sample size of 491 Republican voters. Just another note here, Wesley Hunt, a congressman from the Houston area who is considering a Senate run, pulled 22% in a 3-way survey of the race. Cornyn got 30 and Paxton got 35. Hunt is not in the race. And Republicans make this point, Andrew, and Cornyn allied Republicans, that these are the first surveys since the news of Paxton's divorce became public. Now, there are people in the field now which will be more thorough surveys that we will get our hands on. What do you make, Andrew? What do you make of this?
Look, it shows that Cornyn at least has the potential to start closing this gap here. This primary is in March, so again, a lot sooner than the Michigan primary. But it shows that Senator Cornyn has the ability to sort of start closing this gap, and Cornyn's allies are certainly going to continue to point to polls like this, the more that they sort of come out, if they do continue to show this trend, of course. But it's definitely good news for Senator Cornyn, for the Senate Leadership Fund, for Senate Republican leadership more broadly, that, he is polling better than he was a couple of months ago. And as you mentioned, these are the first polls to come out since the news of Ken Paxton's divorce. But I will note that there's plenty of scandal in the rearview mirror when it comes to Ken Paxton that Republicans are going to be highlighting throughout this primary as well, not just that.
Let me make a couple points here. There's no doubt he is showing signs of closing this gap. Counterpoint. There were 13 polls that had Paxton up in primary polls. That's number one. Number two, Cornyn is spending millions on TV, so that is you might be seeing a bounce from that. Number three, this is just 2 polls, so we'll have to see where this all nets out when we get more polling. And
3's a trend, right, Chick?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess, but I don't.
No, I hear you.
Listen, Cornyn is a really good politician. There's no doubt about that. He's a very skilled politician who's been in office for 2 decades or been in the Senate for 2 decades. This should be a race, right? Cornyn should win this primary. The fact that it's news is that Cornyn is losing this primary
right
at this moment. So
and that he has a very viable challenger.
Exactly. So I'm not really it is notable because Cornyn is losing in 13 straight polls. That's why this is notable. In case anyone was wondering, that's why this is news. Cornyn is the incumbent and he has been down by double digits. Okay.
And the party apparatus needs to spend tens of millions of dollars to rescue him in the primary, which they've admitted to.
Exactly. All right. And with that, leave us a rating and review. You can subscribe to Punchbowl News at punchbowl.news. Have a great day and stay safe.